Professor Seán Ó Riain from the Department of Sociology at National University of Ireland.
Sean, what type of future is in store for Ireland after the bailout?
The future for Ireland after the bailout is, if we don't do anything differently, I think we're looking at a lost decade at least in terms of social cohesion, participation of the whole population in the economy and the society. On the other hand, I do agree that we're not completely at a loss coming out of the bailout. These have been hard fought gains in terms of the fiscal position and so on, and I wouldn't have gone about them the way the government went about them, but nonetheless we are in somewhat better shape. I think the future really depends on some choices we make ourselves in terms of investing in particular, the whole population, tackling economic issues and equality issues at the same time, and looking for models that are a little different from what we pursued in the past. So this idea of just falling back on having a good business environment with an educated population and so on, I don't think is enough. We were starting to move past that at the end of the 1990s, build in more efforts to develop our own industrial base, build up the welfare state, diversify how we ran the country, be a bit more creative in allowing people different ways to participate. And we lost that in the 2000s with property boom and financialisation, the kind of inflow of cheap money through the financial system allocated to all the wrong things, as we all know. So this gives us a chance to go back to that time and make the right choices this time around.
Is there a need to change Ireland's taxation model within all of that systemic change, or is that the wrong question?
I think there's a key issue of how do you pay for this policy, and the question of whether that involves a change in the taxation model is a key element of that. I don't think we should necessarily approach it by asking what exact percentage of GDP needs to go to taxation. The more important question is, what do we need to do with the public institutions that we have? And then to think about, okay, how are we going to pay for this? But I think it will inevitably involve higher rates of taxation, or at least a better taxation base. And one way to do that is with rates of taxation. The other is by boosting up growth and so on, and especially employment. I mean, if we can tackle unemployment, then as well as the social side, you're also talking about tackling the tax base and broadening that out. But I do think, in general, for example, it's been a mistake to weight the fiscal adjustment 2-to-1 in favour of spending cuts rather than taxation. I would have done it at least 2-to-1 the other way, favouring taxation. And I think it's been a mistake to take money out of the higher reaches of the public sector through pay cuts rather than through taxation that would have applied across the whole economy. But I think rather than having a debate which is just simply about the rate of tax first, the more important question is, what are we going to do with the institutions? What do we want to do with them? And then we have to face the facts that this is going to cost us some money. The idea that we can just do more with substantially less is a bit of a fiction. On the other hand, you can't really get people to support. Nobody signs up for 10% increases in tax. What people sign up for is benefits that they get individually or as a community from services or from institutions around them, and then they're willing to pay for those if they start to see that working for the society around them.
And do you think there's a political or an ideological block on discussions around reform of public institutions in Ireland?
I think that's that is a real challenge. The kind of ideological framing of questions around reform of public institutions, the support for those, taxation levels, and so on. Part of that is just a flat-out opposition. So there's that side of it, if you like, a kind of more neoliberal side. I think the more fundamental question is how the debate gets framed to begin with. And we have discussions which are framed around, for example, the private sector versus the public sector. Isn't the public sector so wasteful, etc., etc. when a lot of those questions really are, in a sense, side questions to more fundamental questions about accountability of all institutions. How do you involve the whole population in kind of creatively reimagining, redeveloping their institutions, redeveloping their communities, and so on. And I think if you look around the country, you see, even in the depths of everything that's going on at the moment, you see all kinds of creativity at local level, from all kinds of things. People sharing at kind of among neighbours, all up to, you know, at town levels, across sports clubs, all of the things that we're very familiar with. Really the key is to try and think about ways that you can build institutions that allow people to, that don't dampen that down, but that support that and kind of facilitate it. But it's not enough for that just to be, oh well, let them at it. That involves, you know, really providing people with serious supports. And I think that the whole debate about the public sector and the problems with the public sector, so-called, really, in a sense, doesn't serve either the public sector or the private sector. The public sector is going to be crucial to recovery in the economy and in the society. That's the case in every society, especially small societies like our own that are trading economies and so on. The public sector has been crucial to all of those countries where they are doing well and where they have recovered. So the question is not, you know, do you want a public sector or not, or how big should it be, but it's really should be about, you know, a serious discussion about how would this work better and who would it work better for, and also how would it support a much more equal, universal model of investment in the society as a whole.
What sort of future would you like to see for Ireland?
I think in terms of a future for Ireland, I think most people, and myself included, obviously they have concerns for their own personal level of security and that and economic security, and that looms much larger if you're unemployed, if you're dealing with negative equity, all those kinds of things. So I think those kinds of questions have to be dealt with urgently. On the other hand, I think most people really want to live in a society that works as well as worrying about their own individual income and security. So it's really obvious to me when you look at you know, children in the communities around you that really they want, you know, they are completely interdependent with the community around them, with their neighbours, with their friends, and so on. The vast amount of, you know, the bulk of their quality of life has to do with things that are going on with the people, with their friends, with their comrades, and various things that they do, and so on. And I would like to see a society where your life was actually enriched by what was going on with the people around you, rather than you being enriched by getting something at the expense of the people around you.